My guest today on Creative Inspired Happy is Olivia Wolfgang-Smith, whose latest novel, Mutual Interest, has been described as a witty and joyful queer Edith Wharton. Today, we talk about the most important benefit of having other writer friends or critique partners, finding the belief in yourself that you can write a full-length novel, the difference between publishing a debut novel versus a sophomore novel, including whether it was easier to write a book the second time around, why she chose to hire a freelance publicist, and so much more. Creative Inspired Happy is a video podcast about incredibly successful writers and others in the book world, and how they rose out of obscurity to build fulfilling careers, hosted by me, New York Times bestselling author Evelyn Skye. To join our community and get more writing advice, creativity challenges, and more, follow the link in the episode notes. I hope you enjoy the show. Hi, Olivia. Welcome to Creative Inspired Happy. I'm so excited to have you here on your release day of Mutual Interest.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is really exciting. This is your sophomore novel, so you've had one book out before, and we have a lot to talk about because I'm really curious what it's like, the difference between publishing your first book and now your second one. We know each other also through an external publicist, freelance publicist, so I want to talk about working with them. And of course, I want to get into Mutual Interest and your experience writing it, what it's about. But first, I would love to start kind of at the beginning with younger Olivia, and I would love to hear the story of when did you decide that you wanted to write a book, or how did you know that you wanted to be a writer?
That is a really good question. I feel like I think maybe is common for many people who are at this point in adulthood. I don't remember a time where that wasn't my, besides maybe in kindergarten, I wanted to be a marine biologist, maybe like something like that. But I think that like even alongside that marine biology dream, I was also writing stories that I was very proud to show to all of the adults in my life. So I think, that's sort of a dream and an identity that predates when I even knew that was the kind of thinking I was doing. So that it's just, it feels like it's something that has always been a part of me. And then like slowly as I grew and became like a more varied reader and started to learn what was out there, and like what writing could mean, different ways that it looked to be a working writer. That's how the dream started to evolve and become more complex, but I think it's always been there.
Yeah, so I'm curious, like, what is your background? Did you study creative writing in college, or have you worked as a journalist, or are you self-taught?
Yeah, I did. I studied creative writing in college, and then I eventually got an MFA down in Florida State. So I did learn a lot about writing through these sort of like formal programs. But I think that a lot of what the most valuable lessons that I got there are things that you don't necessarily need to learn in that kind of setting. And it was just like proving to myself that I was capable of like writing at scale, like doing like the idea that like I could write something that was novel length, whether or not it was a novel that would be published between covers. And then also finding my people, finding readers, finding people that are still like in my kind of informal writing group today, that we trade pages with each other. So yeah, that was definitely a part of my journey.
Yeah, I really love that because I find as well that a lot of the critique partners and my best friends in the writing world today, they were the ones that I met at the very beginning when we were all just trying to figure things out. Like, what is a book? How do we even plot something? And it's amazing how long those friendships last.
Yeah, there's something I was actually just talking about this with some of the friends who are my first readers and I'm theirs, that there's a real intimacy of collaboration that comes from knowing people that long,
Mhm.
from a time when everything is really a dream, that there's something of that kind of like predating any sense of networking in a way that is really special.
Yeah, it's almost pure, right, at that stage because you're not thinking, "Hey, I should know this person because of what they might be able to do for me in the future." It's really like you said, we're just sharing a dream, and all of us want to write books.
Yeah. And the more time you put in, the longer you've been someone's reader, the more you get to know their writing and what their like sort of sensibility is. And you can kind of help each other in this way that's really beautiful. Like, I know you have a sense of what each other's going for, how to make something into the best version of that person's book that they would be writing.
Yeah, I really love that. Would you be willing to share a little bit more about like your process with your friends and your critique partners and how you work together?
Yeah, we were just talking about this. I think that most of what we do is actually doesn't involve trading pages. It's like just kind of checking in for accountability on what we're working on. And we kind of there's four of us in this group. We sort of trust each other to when we are at a point where we're looking for critique, looking for feedback on pages, then we'll be like, okay, everybody, like we'll send like sort of like the red siren emoji to each other. Like I have a draft. I'm looking for like who has time to read a draft, but like by volume, the vast majority of what we do is we just check in with each other once a week and we say, here's what I'm working on. I wrote 1,000 words this week, and there's no, it's sort of more about holding ourselves accountable in community. It has been like that like we've all written drafts of books that way. Just like, no, there's the idea that the most valuable thing a group like that can do at many stages of the process is like reassure you in your own head that someone out there cares that you're writing a novel and that they'll be excited to read it when you're done. That's like one of the best parts of the process for us.
Yeah, I think that's actually really important. And you had mentioned earlier, when you were doing your MFA or before you had actually written a full book, just having that kind of reassurance, like finding that confidence that you could write something novel length. And so obviously your friend group, your critique partners, that's part of it. Was there anything like through the process of the education or was it just like the actual working through things? How did you get to, hey, I can write a short story as a kid to I can write an entire book?
I think that, I mean, and I don't mean to downplay the importance of like the actual like workshops and class learning from my programs. Obviously, I learned a lot from them. I think that a lot of it, in my experience, that it's about practice, and it's about the thing like being able to take things in, if maybe in a formal class or workshop setting, but maybe just through like reading at high volume, reading books you love and noticing what they have in common. Out of like reading craft books as well, like the kind of help you make those connections between like, hey, here's a list of like 10 great novels I've loved this year. Why did I love them? Like, what were they doing that was so successful? And even whether they had a lot in common or had nothing in common with each other. So yeah, I think that it's truly it's truly just a matter of patience, I guess. I think of like how of like putting in like time and work, although a lot of it doesn't necessarily feel like work, especially the reading part of it. Like I think that all of us who are writers get into it because we love reading first. And yeah, just kind of being patient with yourself about getting to the point of having patient and persistent, getting to a point of having drafted novel length things. Just it takes time.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that there is value in formal education. I also think, I mean, I'm self-taught. I've talked to other writers as well who were self-taught. And I agree with you. Like really the core of it is just sitting down and doing the work kind of over and over and being, as you said, patient, right? Like letting that craft develop and having that ability to sit back and say, hey, the ideas in my head maybe don't match yet my ability to execute that vision onto the page. And so, very commonly, what happens with my critique readers or like my editor, they'll read something and they'll say, hey, I think I know what you're going for here, but I'm not feeling it, or like, the greatest thing for me is always, what does your main character look like? And I'll realize I completely forgot to put any description on the page. Um, do you have any tips for writers to like kind of get through those early stages? Because for me, I had 8 manuscripts that I wrote that never got published, and it's a long slog sometimes, and it's hard to believe in yourself, even when you have friends cheering you on.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really good point. This was also, yeah, the first novel that I published was not the first novel length manuscript that I wrote. And I think that there is value to that, and it's hard. You hear people say things like that, and you hear, at least me, I would have a voice in my head being like, okay, 8 manuscripts in a drawer is fine for that person, but it wouldn't be fine for, I would not be okay with it. And I get to that, but then you get to that point yourself, and it is okay. That's, I think, the main piece of like general advice I have, like for, I don't know, my past self at that point, like working on that first attempt at a novel manuscript, or anyone else who's in that anywhere along that line, right? Like the part of the phase when I queried like 90 agents for my first, like, that to just have faith in yourself, in your own ability to keep working. And that, like, I don't know, I guess the way I would put it is that it's so easy to feel sometimes like you're never going to have another, like that was the idea. This is the one idea. I'm not going to have another idea. But you will, like you always will. And I feel like as I've like kept, I don't know if you can relate to this, as I keep going in my career, that fear really stays with me and evolves with me, where it went from this was my one try, I'm never going to have a second idea, to well, I'm never going to have a third idea, to well, I'm never going to have a fourth idea. And like I sort of am at a place now where I've accepted that that fear is always going to be there, and that like you could publish your 20th book and be like, well, I'm never going to have a 21st idea for a book. So to try to kind of accept that and know that that's not true, that voice is lying. I don't know, that was the most helpful thing for me to kind of embrace.
Yeah, I actually, I completely feel that as well. And I love how you articulated that because it doesn't go away ever. But,
Mhm.
with experience, you realize, okay, I just maybe need a break, right? I need to go out and live some life, and have some new ideas come in, some new experiences, and then an idea will come. On the flip side, though, I think because when we're in the moment and we're writing this manuscript and we feel like this is the only idea or this is the greatest idea ever, it's really, I think, important to pour everything of yourself into it and don't hold back. Don't think, oh, you know what, I'm going to save this little piece in the future for another book. I really think that you should put everything into the current book you're working on and trust that in the future, when you have a different idea for a different book, you're going to have more things to put into that book. And so there's no need to hold back.
Yeah, that is really important. And it's like the same fear expressed two different ways, I guess, like the same
Yes,
kind of existential fear.
exactly.
But
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go for it.
I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit about Mutual Interest. What is this story about for people who are not familiar? It is out today, so probably no one's read it yet, not really, other than your amazing early reviews, which I saw you have a blurb from Anne Napolitano, and Kirkus Review says, Edith Wharton or Henry James with more camp in a winking tone, which, oh my gosh. So tell us, what is this incredible book about?
Yeah, I guess I like the way that Kirk has put it is maybe as good an elevator pitch as I should start saying things that way. I think I've been describing it as like a queer Edith Wharton pastiche. That's like how I've been talking about it. So we're in New York City at the turn of the 20th century, and this is about a lesbian and a gay man. Those are probably like the labels they would use today, who bring a lot of their own personal drama into having a lavender marriage, like getting married to one another, for convenience, and then eventually bring a third person, the husband of that relationship's business nemesis, into their relationship, both like professionally, financially. They start a soap and scented candle company together, and then also into their domestic and romantic relationship as well. That's my attempt at to sum it up.
No, it's amazing. It's such an interesting idea, and I love the cover. I
The
love the
cover is
colors.
beautiful.
I love
Yeah,
the how it evokes the era as well.
yeah.
Why did you decide to write about the soap and perfume industry?
Um, the seed of this idea for me, it was learning about a very random piece of little historical trivia, which is that Procter and Gamble, William Procter and James Gamble, when before they were collaborators, were professional enemies. That one of them was a soap maker and one of them was a candle maker, and they were competing for raw materials. There's common raw materials to those two industries, especially in the 1800s. And so they were nemesis who then like happened to marry into the same family, and had like and had their then common father-in-law sort of like banged their heads together and was like, what are you guys doing, why are you? And so they had a sort of, I learned about that and I was like, that's almost an enemies to lovers story. It's all but like, and so I wanted to like pump it up. I was like, what if it was actually a love story instead of just almost a love story? So that's why I ended up in that industry, the sort of personal care industry. The more I learned about it, the more fascinated I was, the way that like the cosmetics and soap industry of the 19th century work is just so fascinating and so similar to how it seems to work today, that I kind of fell deeper and deeper down that rabbit hole, learning about perfume and soap and cosmetics of the past. And so, yeah, it sort of became a little bit of a flow state obsession as I was researching and then writing.
I love that. So, you've got these three main characters in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm really curious how you approach writing the dynamics between the characters, how you chose when to focus on spotlight, character A and B or B and C and A and C, and how you managed to do that while continuing to keep their own individual story arcs compelling. Because I feel like that's really quite a feat.
Yeah, and I'm glad. I mean, I hope that it's successful in the book. I think that so. Yeah, the three main characters are there's Vivian, who is this like very ambitious, driven young woman, and then the two men that she's sort of like puppet mastering, Oscar and Squire. Um, I sort of let it grow with the first drafts. I wrote the first three chapters of the book are each like very like 10,000-foot view level, introducing those three main characters like one in a row. And that kind of gave me like a really solid, I wrote those three chapters like first, so that I was getting introduced to them. And that kind of gave me a quite solid sense of who each of the three of them were as people. And from there, I could kind of let the story move forward. The fourth chapter is like where they come together, like where they meet. And from there, I just kind of tried to think what each at the end of each chapter, like where the drama was lying in the future, if that makes sense. Like it's like,
Mhm.
okay, however the previous chapter ended, what's the most interesting source of conflict, or like what's the thorniest thing that's like facing these three people going forward? What combination of the three of them does it involve? Like who should we follow next? Basically, so there's a little bit more like open concept drafting than, I don't know, like how where you fall on the outline versus no outline.
Well, I'm curious. So you don't outline. You're kind of like you sort of generally knew where the story was going, or did you have no idea where the story was going?
It's more the former. I had a general idea. Like this book has like a very omniscient narrator. So like
Mhm.
I had like this sense of like the timeline we were going to cover. I knew that it was going to be like a sort of like a very sweeping, like lifelong story. So that implies some things about what the plot, like the arc of the story will be. But yeah, for me, previously, I usually have a very detailed outline, to a fault, I would say, because I'm very, like a very anxiously driven drafter where I feel like I need there to be a plan. And this book was sort of an in between phase for me, in a way that was kind of scary, but
That's
exciting.
really interesting because this is one of the questions I wanted to ask you about the differences between your debut novel and your sophomore novel. And actually, it's not my question. It is someone from our community, because Creative Inspired Happy is not just a podcast. We're also an online community of writers and curious readers. So Karen S. wanted to ask you, did the plot lines of your story come together more quickly the second time around due to a successful first book and having been through the publishing process at least once before?
That is a really good question. I think that, and part of it, an interesting thing about the timeline here is that I was actually writing this before my first book um, came out. Like it had been, I was in publication process with it. Like it had been sold. I knew that it was going to come out, but I was writing this. Actually, I was honestly drafting. I was coming to draft this book. It was sort of my therapy. It was sort of my creative, like to remind me, because a lot of the things, maybe we'll talk about it a little bit, but like a lot of what goes into the publication pipeline is like a lot more to do with like marketing and selling and the book than it is to do with you can feel a little bit less like a writer than you do at other points in the process when you were actually drafting and writing and editing the book yourself. So working on this book was sort of something I would do to return to a sense of myself as like a creative practice as opposed to a job, like a career person. Um, so it was easier and kind of like very joyful in that, it really, the contrasting it with everything that goes into publishing a book made me very aware of how lucky I was to be writing this book, and how much fun it is to write a book, right? Like when you're, which can be easy to take for granted sometimes. But yeah, there's a little bit, like, you can also kind of get in your head a little bit because you're picturing that once you know what the publication process is like, it can be, in my experience at least, a little bit hard to just sit back and enjoy drafting because you're in your head like, how would I pitch this to an editor or to an agent? What would a reader think of this, in a way that's like that's a little bit easier to ignore when you're just when you haven't been through it before, like when you don't have it to picture. So there
Yeah,
were pros and cons.
there's definitely something about working on a debut novel, before you know it's going to be a book, before you have a book deal, and you have all the time in the world. I mean, obviously, there's an urgency in that you want this book to be published, you want people to read it, but there is no external pressure, there's no external feedback, and it is only yours. And like
Yeah.
you said, once you've been through that process and you're working on the next one, you feel the eyes on you. Even if your first book wasn't out yet, you don't have readers yet, but you already feel publishing's eyes on you. I'm
Yeah.
actually wondering if you're willing to share, was it a 2-book deal that you had for your first one? Like, did you know that Mutual Interest was already under contract, or was this something that you were just working on and you didn't know yet if it was going to be picked up by a publisher?
It was the latter. So yeah, this was not a 2-book deal. This was something that just, like, by accident of timing, like, we happened to sell the second book just before the first one came out. But yeah, they were totally separate.
Is it the same publisher or different publishers?
It is. It's the whole same crew. So
Okay.
it was, that is one thing that was a lot easier the second time, because I literally knew like not only the process but the individual people that we
Hmm.
were like talking to and working with. So that was a real comparison opportunity for me to understand how much, I don't want to say just like existentially easier in the sense of that everything is, when you're doing anything for the first time, it's so scary. Even if it's positive, it's very scary and overwhelming. So that was really special. And yeah, the whole, like, there's definitely a grass is always greener element to it, I guess, that now I think nostalgically, exactly like you were just describing, of the experience of writing a debut. You just get to be like with yourself, and there's no rush, and that's not how I was feeling at the time. Obviously, I was like feeling very stressed and very like anxious and hopeful and wishing it was my second book and I had a book deal. Like, I remember hearing that sentiment from published authors when I was working on my debut, and saying, "Oh, that nice work if you can get it." Like, I don't know, but it's true.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what I'd love to kind of know the timeline of like you working on your second book and then where Glassworks, your first book, was kind of like in the marketing promotion process. Like when were you drafting Mutual Interest, and how did you keep changing hats, between the two? Because obviously your publisher will get on, and send you an email. It's like, hey, we need you to do this thing on Instagram, or like, oh, can you sign up for this, I don't know, festival or whatever.
Yeah. Um, that's a really good question. And I feel like part of it is like my memory has gotten muddy. I wonder how I apologize if I'm not able to answer it very well. I I believe we turned it in for, like, we submitted the second book, um I think about 2 months before Glassworks, my first book, published. So
Okay.
that was so that's where we were in the timing. I was like in that sort of like pre-pub place of like getting early trade reviews and getting events set up. So we were close to publication, but not like imminent. Um and yeah, the switching hats, it was so reactive. Like, I guess, like, I would truly, I didn't, I wasn't planning things in advance, and I wasn't sitting down and being like, this week I'm just drafting, or like, this week I'm focusing on. It was truly like you said, like, I would get an email and be like, okay, I guess I'm closing the Word document and doing something to do with pre-pub, like, marketing prep now. And it was sort of it was very back and forth, and it was very just like, what does the next hour look like? What do I feel like I'm doing here? And it helped me, I think, in the sense that anytime that one of the two projects started stressing me out, I could kind of like go go spend some time with the other one. But yeah, it was a very unique experience.
Is there anything you would do different, or are you doing anything different the second time around now? Like knowing what promotion schedule kind of looks like, knowing that like right before a book comes out that you have to focus so much more attention on it.
Yeah, actually, it's true. Because I have been working on drafting something new, and I got to the end of a first draft, around like the end of October, and I think that in the past, I might have been like, okay, I'll let it sit for a week and then I'll send it to my early readers and then I'll like start out like, figuring out a draft two. And I'm just like it's literally in this drawer in front of me right now. Like I was like I am going to wait. I will check in with that in March. Like I am going to like give myself time to part of the gift that I'm trying to give myself is like just enjoy the fact that a book is coming out. Like don't try like in an attempt to get away with that anxiety we were talking about, like the will there ever be another one? Will I ever have it get to do this again? I didn't want to let that anxiety make me not pay attention to this month, and kind of trying to wait a little bit, and to try not to multitask, to try to just be here and experience everything that's going on right now in front of me.
Yeah, I love that. And it's something I'm still learning. Like 10 books in, I'm still constantly kind of like go, 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 and I think it's important. I'm gonna make a note to myself because my book comes out in August, you know what? Take the summer off and just enjoy launching a book.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how well I do at it. Like this is the first time I'm like trying to hold myself to it because it can be hard. I mean, part of the reason that at least part of the reason I have that drive to multitask is fear and anxiety and like how it's gonna go, and like you're protecting yourself from any sense of disappointment
Mhm.
or anything like that. So, but I
Yeah.
think it's for the good, for the best.
Yeah. Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit because you and I actually connected because we work with the same external or freelance publicity, public relations firm. I don't know why I couldn't think of it
Yeah,
right now. Lavender PR.
yeah.
I work with Brittany Hill is there. You work with Amelia and Brittany. I am interested why you decided to hire them now for your second book and maybe some of the differences, between the process, if you've seen any differences with your first book having an in-house team, which I'm sure was great, but then kind of what an external team brings to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a really good experience with my first book. It, I think that this is just something that, for me, the first book was kind of more of an existential project for myself. Like that, like that's how I thought of it. Like independent of any kind of metric of success that has to do with sales or the actual publication. Like it was like I am going from someone who has not been through a novel publication process to someone who has, and like what will that feel like? How will it feel to like what kind of person will I be on the other side of that? Will I be happy I did it or not? Turned out it was a really positive experience. I had a really great time. And but it kind of freed me up to start to think of this the second time around as more of a career, less of an existential change and more of a career change. And so that was part of it. I wanted to see like what other investment can I make in myself, and in my career and in this book to try to get myself to take it more seriously as something that's like out there in the real world, and that is not just about me going through an identity change or an existential change, but it is about wanting to make sure that this book finds as many of its readers as possible. And I felt sort of less. I think that with the first book, there was a little bit of an element of like I felt a little bit almost conflicted about how about people reading my book. Like I was like, obviously, I want lots of this to happen, but I'm nervous. I was very nervous to get it out there, and I felt sort of stronger this second round in a way that made me braver, like more courageous about wanting this to get out there. Um, and yeah, I think that the idea of having more publicists, more folks who are like dedicated to helping the book find its readers was something that was really important to me. And in this particular case, this book that I've written, it's this work. It's like it's a novel of manners, kind of like drawing room love story. This very kind of like tropey love story, that is this work of really like actively, joyfully queer historical fiction. And I felt like Lavender and Amelia and Brittany were folks who were just very plugged in with this like very specific type of media in a way that I was eager to make sure that I wanted this book to find its people. And I wanted to make sure we had like as many people, boots on the ground, who could help it do that as possible. So I don't know. I like it's been. I love Lavender. I love them. So it's been really lovely.
I think that a lot of people, well, there's two things. Number one, for me, I had never hired an external publicist up to this point because I'm really tight-fisted with my money. And because I think a lot of writers, you feel like, well, I worked for so many years without being paid and now I have a book deal and, you want to hold on to all that advance. And I feel like that's kind of in our industry, we don't think as business people very often. And so if you go to any other industry where people are they're like the creator industry or, any other, I don't know, quote unquote normal business that's not a creative business, it's very common that you spend money, right? You invest in your business, you invest in your career. Whereas I think that writers, me included, we tend to think, okay, well, now that I have an advance from a publishing house, that money is for me and I'm going to keep all of it because I don't know when I'm getting another one. But I think that it is really smart to spend a little bit of that money, right? To invest in your career, whether it is to, for some people, it's taking classes on like how to do their Instagram better, or like, for us, we decided to go with publicists. And it's been very eye-opening to me what you can do when you have more publicity. And it's not commentary on it's not negative commentary on publishers, because I think that everyone in those publishing houses, they work so hard and they love books so much, but they're also representing a ton of books every single year. And so they're stretched thin. And for me so far, having Brittany and Lavender working together with my team at Atria and Holly, who's the publicist there, who's amazing, like it's been a really good synergy.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had the same experience that it's been like a lot of collaboration and like in my experience that everyone is happy to have more people in the corner of this book. Like there's a common goal and everyone is excited to be working together. Which has been really nice. But yeah, everything you just said resonates so much. Like the idea of making the mental transition to the idea of like this is a business, this is my career, and like part of what you do is make these investments, whatever it may be. That things, I think that there's a lot of like obfuscation to this as well, because it is a creative like industry, that it's hard sometimes to tell from the outside how things happen. And the answer is a lot of publicity and marketing and like a lot of networking that goes on behind the scenes. And I think that it's good to change that up and say like embracing that and investing in that is normal. Is like a great thing to do. I mean, obviously every situation is different and no everyone should spend their advance how they want to spend it. But I think that it's a really I resonate with what you're saying about the mental shift to be like this money is to invest back in the career.
Yeah, it's hard. It's really hard. And I mean, I set aside some of it for me, right? I mean, it's like you
Mm-hmm.
have to make the money, but also, yeah. But I think also it's interesting because we're on the traditional publishing side, right? And so if you were self-publishing, like those authors, they're much more entrepreneurial, I find, and like they are used to like outlaying money. Like this is running the business. Like you pay for your cover design, you pay for your editor. And so it's not as far a leap to think, okay, I'm going to pay for advertising, I'm going to pay for publicity. And there's something about traditional where you get the advance, and I think it's a little bit of an outdated idea that we think, oh, and now the publishing house will do everything. And, that would be nice. But that's realistically, I think that's outdated by like 15, 20 years. Like I started publishing almost a decade ago. And even then, it wasn't true that they would just do everything for you, And so, like, authors need to be doing something. And again, whether it's keeping the advance, but then spending a lot of your time, working on your social media, or saying, okay, this is not what I'm good at, I'm going to outsource to publicity. I think it's smart, but I agree with you too. Everyone's got to make their own decision. And, you have to make it at the right time for you, for your career too. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's hard sometimes to find out. I mean, there are a lot of, unfortunately, the industry can be, there are people who are predatory in the industry. And there's so many of us who are so desperate to publish and publish well that there are bad publicists out there, or there are, bad quote unquote agents who will be like, oh, I'll help you get a book deal for a fee. And you do have to be careful. And I think that's why I've been so hesitant in the past to hire publicists, because I've heard some nightmare stories too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that part of it for me as well is that that's part of why I think my timeline is what it was. That like I think that it makes sense to me. Like I've had this wonderful experience like working with Lavender, like having this wider network of folks who are championing this book. I have no regret. Like I in no part of me is like I wish I had done this with the first book. Like I think that like I kind of needed to like dip my, like I'm learning. This is my second book. I'm early. I'm like learning every step of the way how publishing works. Like I think it's smart to kind of look around and like kind of don't throw yourself in past where you're comfortable or where you feel like you have a sense of what's going on or like who these people are that you're talking to. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I know that I got kind of a little bit negative there. I don't want to be negative. We're creative and we're inspired and we're happy. So like on a positive note, I would love to hear about some like surprises, that you've maybe like experienced or learned along the way now with the second book.
Oh my gosh. Um, I think that like you're talking about like in the publishing like process
Yeah,
experience
yeah.
or yeah. Um, I think that like I have surprised myself with how much, and this maybe is just like constitutional about me, how much easier how much more enjoyable things are the second time. Like I feel like I'm having a lot of like quite quite similar and in some cases almost exactly the same experiences. Things like we're getting ready for my launch event, and like I'm launching this book at the same bookstore that I launched the first one at. And my memory of the launch the last time is all fear. Like it's like anxiety. And then I was like so like thrilled and surprised that it like was a good experience and it went well and like wow. And like this time I'm excited. Like I'm excited to be going back to that place and to be getting to like introduce this book to people and read from it and have a conversation. So that's been the thing that is the most beautiful surprise is that like I'm able to kind of like more fully enjoy how things are going the second time. And I think that again, like it's all just existential. It's how distracted I am by my own fear and my own anxieties.
No,
Easier
but
this
I
time.
love it. I love that positive spin on like
Mhm.
your own self-awareness. So to wrap up, I would love you to tell us where your launch event is going to be and where people can find you, in person or online, and your book, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, the launch event for Mutual Interest is going to be at Greenlight Bookstore in Brooklyn at today, February 4th at 7:30. And then later this week we'll also be in Boston and then in DC if anybody is in those areas, as well as in Decatur, Georgia, a little bit later in the month. And I am on Instagram at O Wolfgang Smith. That's probably the best place to find me. I forget, was there anything else I was supposed to say?
No, do you have a website, or where's your tour information if people want to find the exact dates and bookstores?
Yeah, sure. All that stuff will be linked on my Instagram.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on Mutual Interest. And I'm so excited for you for your second launch and that you're going to enjoy it. So have so much fun tonight. And thank you for taking the time to be on the show.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.
Want more writing advice and career insight? Join thousands for free at creativeinspiredhappy.com to go behind the scenes with best-selling authors and get access to our book club for writers, creativity challenges, and more. I can't wait to see you there.